Set. I'll bring the Board of Finance meeting of November 1st, 2023 to order. We have myself, Mike Anderson, Vice Chair, Dan Smith, Carl Johnson, Gary Nino, Ian Friend, Winona Burdine, and we're just waiting for Sarah, but she'll be here, I'm sure. Any public comment? No public. Item number 3, we have Board of Education financials and non-lapsing account, and we're lucky to have Christine Wagner here, Chair of the Board of Ed Extraordinaire. Christine, we've got the Board of Education financials that were through August. Is there anything updated from then that you know of?
The most recent one that we just went through was for September's.
Okay.
So we just approved that at the last week's meeting.
All right. We didn't see anything really out of the ordinary on the August, and how, is there anything that you think you need to report to us on this, and how we, obviously.
No, I think, and just talking to Carl here real briefly, I'd like to just recap a couple other things before we dig into the financial report, because it sounds like you guys have some specific line item questions. So if I can just do a quick recap of some other things, because I think we'll spend the bulk on the financials, if that's
sounds good.
Is that okay?
One thing, we're going to see Amy for Paul. You okay with that, Amy? You taking minutes? Okay. All right, I'm sorry, Christine, go ahead.
So if that's okay to go that approach before we dig into just the financial?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just a couple of things I just wanted to give you guys a kind of a recap of everything we've been working on a little, not the other things we've been working on, but just everything related to financial. So we did get the capital list over to Christine. So she has that. And one of the things that we need to talk with the selectmen about and are kind of grappling with is where's the difference? And we know the difference between how you define capital, but now we need to kind of determine those higher maintenance items on the building, who's responsible for that and who should be having that in their budget. So that's one thing we want to start having some more discussion on, because we're a little unclear. Like, for example, we just had a large HVAC repair that wasn't in our budget. So we're just a little bit unclear on some of that. We want to continue to work towards a plan for that as well. So we did the capital list. You guys will all see that, I'm sure, in detail. Under our last audit, we had a recommendation to put together a finance procedures guide, and we have done that. And we didn't approve it. We approved it as written for now, knowing that anytime there will be changes to it, we need to reapprove it. So if they are doing a certain procedure differently and using a new software, doing something else, then we have to come back and redo it. But it's nice because now if we have a business manager change, an accountant change, they actually have a procedures manual on how to do everything. Okay. We settled the administrator's updated contract, and that'll be effective 24-25. I had some good language in there that changed, and we were really, really happy with the way that contract negotiation came out. And just a couple of positives for you guys as well. I don't know if you got the memo, but the ECS funding is going to be increasing next year for fiscal year 25. So that's, you're going to see an increase to the town of about $112,000 in revenue. Educational cost sharing that comes from the state. It's a pretty large line item on your guys' financials. Yeah, it's about it is about $2,393,930. It's going up to $2,505,850. And we are continuing to draw students from other districts. We currently have 23 students coming from other districts.
Can you give us the cost per student? I mean,
yep,
the tuition
Yeah,
It's 12,100 something?
yeah, I was getting, that's 12,187, so that equates to $280,301.
Awesome.
Well above, what we anticipated. And, yeah, really, fantastic money coming into the town that we didn't have even 2 years ago. So then that brings us to, we can talk about the financials first if you'd like, and then we can talk about the non-lapsing account.
Christine, can I just ask real quick? You said that the September financials are, we don't have those, but they are approved.
Yeah, we accept them.
Okay.
Yep. And we just did that last week.
And while you're on the per student that you're getting for tuition, what's it cost per our students, for each of ours that we're paying from the town?
Don't have that number up.
I think part of,
And those are
Part of this
two
is-
different
yeah,
numbers. Yeah.
part of it is, from what my understanding, Christine, we're obviously trying to compete with other, school districts, NFA, for instance, Norwich Tech, whatever. So we actually, we were in 11,000 something when we first started, and we went up to 12.
We have a
something.
contract with them now where we've set the expectation of the increase each year. I'm looking for it here. Let's see. So this year, 22-23, or 23-24, it's 12,187. Next year, it'll go to 12,674. Then it goes to 13 and 13,054 and 26-27, 13,446. So we have settled that, and those schools then can plan for that and budget accordingly as well.
Excellent.
Very much in line with what's going on in other districts and what other districts are paying. There's kind of a misconception that if our cost per pupil is, let's say, 17,000, we should be charging 17,000. It doesn't equate that way. So keep in mind, we're not adding a teacher when we're bringing tuition in. Our bricks and mortar cost for electric and everything else aren't changing when we're bringing in a tuition student. So those things all kind of come into play when you're coming up with a cost per pupil in town. So tuition charges are determined much differently from outside districts. And to your point, Mike, we're trying to stay competitive with what's going on in those other areas. Let's see here.
Yeah, Carl has one more question.
One more question. Last time I asked was, how many students do we have per, I guess, VOAG, or the cost per each student for each VOAG we're paying, each magnet school? If you got that, just out of curiosity. Or the amount of people might figure it out.
I don't know the amount of people, but it'll be a line item in the budget for tuition, because we pay out under tuition. It's, yeah, I don't know how many students that is. Yeah, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Stuff I had last time, that's why I'm at.
Okay, I can find out for you. And a lot of this just because I might not have the exact answer for you, but I'll take down the question and be sure I get the answers back to you.
Great.
Right, just because they're gonna come at me, I may not be prepared for it, so I'm scared of you. No.
Actually, we were supposed to have these questions to you before you came
Yeah,
here,
I
and I forgot to follow up with Carl, so Christine, don't
Okay.
worry about. me.
Okay, but I will definitely follow
On the
up and
spot.
get you answers as well. So, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what we do with the budget and what we, you're a hot mess, Carl.
Carl, why don't you move over here?
Just, so we have changed kind of the way we do our meetings right now. What we do is the first meeting of the month, we do, our first run through the financials. We do a finance committee meeting prior to that. And then we do, policy work and, any kind of goal setting workshop kind of things at our first meeting. And then our second meeting is our business meeting. So we have a report each month that comes to, or a, not a report, but a presentation on a set topic. So there's actually a calendar out on our website that shows what the topic will be for that month. Last week we did, scores, what our state scores were, what our test scores were. This next meeting in November, we only have one meeting, but we'll be doing curriculum. So we have it set, the meeting prior to that in September, we did IT. So there'll be a set way for people to see if there's a topic of interest, they can listen to the presentation. And that's also where we go through and accept the budget or the financial report. So typically what'll happen is Alex is the chair of our finance committee. So when we get this report, we go through it already line item by line item by line item. And Alex will send an email. This is kind of an example of the email he'll send with questions on line items, certain things. So we get explanation. Bill will send us back a reply. We'll discuss it at the finance committee meeting. All of the board will be aware of the answers, any other questions that come up when we are meeting about that. And then we will move to accept the report as given to us. And we don't approve it. We went away from approving it because we're only accepting what's being presented. We're not approving those expenses because they've already taken place.
Understood.
My most recent note from just this last one for September, we still have about 82.5% of the budget left. Most of the expenses that came in September were for payroll and benefits, because teachers had 3 pays in September. There was a $26,000 one-time cost for course reimbursement. Let's see, we're up to date now in utilities and health insurance. We had that large expense for the HVAC, and I'll have to see how much that was exactly. And that came out of the purchase property services. We're also getting, we're in the process of getting a quote to upgrade the HVAC control system. We just had to do a lot of software updates on that. So we have approved to pay for those. We are projected on track for special ed, which is really important that we keep a really good eye on that. We were able to bring another student back in to district. So that's all directly part of our new program that's over here. So we're really working hard to keep kids in district. We think they learn best with their peers.
And it's cheaper.
Right, it is less expensive for sure. Let's see here. We've had our IDA grant approved. Our Title I and Title II grant applications are almost complete. We're working on a Title IV grant. We get these grants every year. They cover the same expenses from year to year. We also have been working with Downs to get a copy of, this isn't financial, but we need to get all of our warranties in one place for the building. So we've been working on that. We've got a thumb drive for that, and Bill and Troy are working to keep all of that up to date as well, so that if something breaks or something goes wrong, we can find out if it's under warranty. A lot of warranties have already passed. So we're kind of on our own for some things there. You'll see we have some of those line items into the non-lapsing account as well. All right, so that kind of brings us where we are as an overview. Did you have some direct questions for me, Carl? Are you sure? Okay. I mean, if you want, okay, if you want to send those to me, I'm happy to dig into it. Okay, I appreciate that. All right. You are going to see some line items that look like they're duplicates. It's just where they're flagged. Like tuition is going to be different for magnet school versus special education, things like that. And keep in mind, when you see tuition that has nothing to do with the tuition that's coming in, that tuition goes directly to the town. That is not in our budget.
Those tuitions are what we pay out.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
How are we doing with reconciling now with the school financials with the town financials? I know that there was, you guys use different software, so it was, it's been a challenging process, but
So I'll let Christine speak to that.
We're receiving the reports in the schedule that we're supposed to be. The only thing that we haven't gotten was, there's a separate way that the grants are being tracked, and we haven't received the grants spreadsheet. So Susan was gonna reach out to Bill again on that.
Okay.
But everything else we're getting as we're supposed to.
Yeah, it was my understanding that we've remedied where the issues were and that we're moving in a good direction.
oh, good.
So, and the audit's coming. I think we're pretty prepared for that now. Last year, just to remind you guys, for the non-lapsing, we're trending more, what should be the norm, and we put about 30,000 into that. And when you look at the size of our budget, that's pretty good budgeting. If I were to look at it, so.
That's right.
And that's about where we think we'll be continuing to trend, is in that smaller range, not these large amounts of money going into that non-lapsing like we saw through COVID.
And everyone's was here when we had those conversations where that one year that because of COVID and everything, that was
Yeah, we had like 2 years, we had
2
two
years
off
where
years
that
on
was-
that, right,
kind of an anomaly.
right. We are struggling a little bit on the non-lapsing with, I don't know if you guys have the financials on that, but
So
for
I was gonna ask,
example,
when was the
yep.
last time that a non-lapsing report was provided to the Board of Finance?
when the non-lapsing what?
A report?
It's
was-
always attached to your financials. It's the last page.
It wasn't on the one that they received for August.
Oh, okay. Should have been. It should come every month. So I'll find out, I'll get you, you should be getting September's now and it should be attached to that. So, cause it's usually the last page of the,
So just so that you're aware, I don't think that we've had one, maybe even on 20.
so I'm wondering if they're sending you the financials and he's not remembering to attach the non-lapsing because we get it as part of our report, but maybe it's not being included on yours. So I'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
So it should be coming monthly though?
Yeah, if you'd like it monthly, it can come monthly. How, it should also be out on the website if you want to look at it at any time.
Oh, it is on the
It should
website?
be on the website, yeah. But I'll make sure you get a copy with this next report so that you have the most current one.
Just send it to me, Christine, and I'll get it to everybody.
Okay. So where the issue, one of the things, I'm trying to find my notes from our last meeting here, just bear with me. It's on a different sheet. The way that we can, we have some money flagged, for example, for, just looking at my report here. For innovative instruction, for example. And what we would want to use that for is, let's say a teacher has a desire to go to a conference or do something to improve their classroom, go out, go to that conference, bring the information back, share with other teachers. Right now, the way it is, if they want to sign up for that, the only way we can pay for that out of non-lapsing is we either have to know well enough ahead of time to put in a request with an invoice to the town has to sign it, sign the check, put it through, get it back over to us, and we have to get it up to the conference. Or we can have the teacher pay for it themselves and get reimbursed, which is not ideal, and most of the time teachers just aren't going to sign up for a conference if they have to pay for it themselves. So this last meeting, we had, and I wish I thought I had it in front of me and I don't, but we had an additional expense that we needed to pay for. I don't remember what it is. Just bear with me a second. It was some STEAM money, which is a program that we approved. We had a little bit additional that we needed to pay for, but we also had some of those staff development conferences that we wanted to pay for. So we were able to cover that STEAM in the budget, but we ended up doing was covering it out of non-lapsing so that we could have some money in the budget to pay for those conferences. And we'd like to find a better way so it's a little more transparent that if we've flagged the money in non-lapsing for professional development, that we can actually show a line item of professional development, but we need to get the money quicker and faster without so many hoops to be able to spend it. So we're going to try to kind of brainstorm on better ways to do that. And I don't know if the town has any suggestions on that either. But sometimes the lag time and getting a check signed can be a little bit slower.
Yeah, so we can't reimburse the Board of Ed, so you can't spend the money out of the budget and then get it reimbursed from the non-lapsing account back to the Board of Ed account.
right.
So that's why it has to go through those channels. So I don't know. I mean, we usually cut checks every week.
Yeah,
So it's just a matter of us getting the paperwork over from the business.
right, right.
Why is the non-lapsing account is
It's
under
a
your,
completely separate bank account.
okay,
So it has
and it's
to,
under your control, it's under the town's
it's
control?
under the town's control, yes, because it's part of non-lapsing. Or, sorry, capital non-recurring, CNR. So it's a separate bank account, separate from the general fund.
And we'll figure it out. We just want to make sure it's transparent. That's all. We just don't want to see. We want it to be very explainable, very clear, very obvious what we're doing. So we just want to make sure we're coming up with the best way to do it. So it just came up for the first time at our last meeting. So we're kind of thinking that through right now. And other things that we've done with the non-lapsing, since you haven't seen the report.
They don't appear to be online either.
Okay, I'll get you a copy. Let's see here. It's last year's. We just got approved for the steep grant for irrigation at the fields, so that is super exciting. We've approved 20% of that through the non-lapsing. We've installed some playground equipment. We've purchased some playground equipment. We've done some wood shop equipment. We installed a gate over around for septic access. We purchased stage curtains. And then we also had our portion of the most recent state grant where we did the paving of the playground over there. Yeah, we also just approved resurfacing the softball and baseball fields through that as well. So that's going to be really great. The irrigation is going to be key to keeping those fields in good shape. So we're really excited about that.
Probably not a question for you, but as far as the irrigation, I believe when you went out for the amount to figure out how much to pay for, that in your statement, I believe it said you were gonna try and use existing well or water already on site. If it comes back that it's more expensive, are you gonna end up with the city water pumping that? Okay, that would be,
No, I don't believe city water, we looked at that, but I don't believe they had other options when they did the field study. And city water wasn't, because then we're gonna have to pay for city water. Yeah, so we're looking at different options there, and they felt pretty positive that we were able to use the existing water sources. We can share.
Thank you.
We also have some damage on the roof that we're looking from birds that we need to take care of, so we'll probably end up covering that through non-lapsing as well.
How much do you have in that account right now, just so we know?
It looks like according to my report, the balance right now is just want to make sure I don't give you the wrong number. 324 is what I'm showing. Yeah, that would be fine. There have been a couple things approved that maybe haven't gone through yet.
So we haven't done the end of last fiscal year deposit since we haven't completed the audit.
Okay.
So right now there's $356,762.57 in that account.
Okay, so yeah, there's some things there that we've recently approved that haven't come through on that.
Sorry, I'm a little concerned. So you labeled it as capital non-recurring. So is it a capital account or is it an expense account or is it whatever?
It's a so we have our regular capital fund and then we have capital non-recurring. So there's a few things that go into that. But this sub account, which is just the Board of Ed non-lapsing account, has that 356,762.
Yeah, no, I know what the value is, but what's it structured as? Is it ongoing maintenance? Is it expense? Is it capital? What is the non-recurring or the
That's just how it's
non-lapsing account used for?
educational
the-
expenses.
Yes, so the non-lapsing account can be used for any educational expense. Our concern is what we really want to use it for is programming and things that directly impact education for the students. We've been doing a lot of capital things with it, which has been concerning and not sustainable. The other thing is we have no IT in our current budget. And if we continue to use the non-lapsing to pay for IT, we're going to also be using it for the wrong things. So we are looking at how do we bring back some IT into our current budget for things like, we have to refurbish the Chromebooks, the computers, on a regular basis. We did pay for some switches and some things like that. We were looking at, what are the one-time occurrences to come from there? But not so much what should be part of a regular budget.
Thanks.
Yep. Some good things happening there too. I mean, I think the fields thing is great. The playground equipment over at the elementary school is really great.
So
Steam.
some of that was paid for with the steep grant, and some of you were contributing.
Right, we pay 20%. And as we continued, with athletics too, we continue to expand our programming with that. Our co-ops are expanding. That athletic stuff is really big, and when we're drawing kids from other districts to be able to offer some good programming with that, because they get to play here. They go to NFA, they're not really guaranteed they're going to get to play. So it's been a really nice to have them as part of our team. So. Any other questions?
I just think, a balance between, the concerns that I guess the Board of Finance have had about with the non-lapsing account and kind of the give and take that we've had with you guys is, obviously you have a large amount there from those anomalies. And, obviously you want to use it for your programming and things that benefit the education. But I think you guys have a good tact of, you have a lot of money there, and if there's one-time capital expenditures that can really help out, that's a good use of that I guess the bonus kind of that we have, and I think that's a good way to go about it, and I think that's what we'd like to see.
Yeah, and I mean, our philosophy on it is it's all taxpayer dollar, right? So if there's an expense, knowing that it's not going to continue to grow at that pace, but if there are some one-time expenses that need to get taken care of, we're certainly not going to, depending on the expense, come back for an appropriation if we don't have it in the budget or something like that. We feel and have been on a pretty regular basis covering those expenses with that account. We can't cover salary. We can't cover those kinds of expenses. We can't cover special ed. Nothing like that can come from that non-lapsing.
So what is the Board of Ed's definition of educational purposes for the non-lapsing? Is that the true definition of how the Board of Ed is using it? You can't use it for special ed. You can't use it for.
Well, legally, we can't use it for those
I know
things.
state
Yeah.
statute. I'm just what I worry about and make sure we don't is buying education purposes. Is it for field trips? Is it for additional programming? Is it not buying a tractor or some other thing? Where is the delineational line for educational purposes that you guys are using for that?
If we're not using it for a capital item, like if there's something that came up that we don't need to use it for, we really would like it to be used for things like STEAM programs, STEM programs. Innovative instruction is one of our main goals. So more programming, more professional development for our staff. Our funding for that's fairly low. Anything that's going to directly impact our student is what we want to use that money for. It's about the student and how can we add more? How can we be more robust with their programming? Sometimes that does take extra technology, and we're okay with that. We just want to make sure we're really embracing that for our student.
And also, I just was reading, the MOA for that, for the non-lapsing. It, it's like the last line. We're to get an expenditure list of what was expended and a balance sheet every time we receive, the financials.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. I really thought that was coming with it. So I will make sure that when you get this next one, you have it updated. And just like we get it attached to our financials, it should be attached to yours as well.
Thank
All
you.
right. So I will be sure that you have that no later than probably Friday. Okay.
Anything else with regard to the non-lapsing account from the board?
Are you sure? Because I'm hoping this is helpful, and I'd really, if you have questions or if you have concerns or if you're like, I don't like it, I would rather we talk about it now than later.
My one question, I mean, I guess that came up because, based upon Dan's question, when we talked about it initially, part of it was to give you guys an opportunity to wait so you're not buying things at the end of the year that you might not necessarily get the best deal on and things like that. And I thought maybe some of those were supplies or other things like that. Can you still use it for supplies and stuff like that if you had to?
If we had to, we could, yes. But it has stopped us from doing that last minute buy. Where, I think we were always like, okay, well, if we're really short on supplies, our instructional supply line isn't very big. What do we need to do by, and sometimes you're just not thinking it through well enough to buy exactly what you need for an instructional supply. I mean, how much paper do you need? How much pencils do you need? If we got to a point where teachers were saying, hey, we're short, we could use it for that if we
Okay.
had to, but we're trying to budget properly for that. And then we're just trying not to buy things at the end that we may not end up using. We also used to do, we didn't do it, but the superintendent's in charge of the spend of the budget, right? So a lot of times the teachers were told there was a freeze on the budget really early on in the year. And that wasn't, that's not a good feeling for a teacher to be told their budget's being frozen and they don't have the money to get what they need. So the current administration and the current superintendent central office has gone away from that language. The budget is there. If you need something, they are supposed to come forward and ask for it. And we will try to find a way if there's an educational reason for it. And we're really trying to change that culture of don't ask for any money. If you need it for our kids to learn better, to have better programming, come to us. Let us know what you need, and we're going to try to find a way.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're able to use it for that, because that was a big part of the discussion is, not having the means to wait to make a good decision on a buy. And so you have that opportunity still.
So my question would be, is the Board of Ed accounting for a certain amount of money going into that account every single year? Or, because when I originally seconded, I think you brought up the RISA account for a vote, and I seconded it and everything. My opinion of the way that the account was going to be managed was, we have $50,000 extra this year. It might not be every single year. That money goes into the account, preventing the last minute burn of money, and then we spend the money out of the account. I don't think the logic was to have this becoming a growing account.
And the logic is that we're budgeting properly and our line items are exactly what we need to fulfill those in our budget.
But how I'm
But
viewing
things
that,
change.
but how I'm viewing that account is, if you have $300,000+ in that account, we should be buying these things, not budgeting over a longer period of time, like over 3 or 4 or 5 years. It should be, hey, I need to buy this, buy it.
And we are doing that right
and then
now.
Run the account down to zero, and then when you have an overage the next year of 60,000, the money goes into the account, and then you spread that money out throughout the
But
year.
they're allowed to keep they're allowed to keep it's the 20% of the of the
2%.
2%, right,
2% to go into the account.
to go into the account.
There is no max amount that they can have in that account.
That's correct.
There is only a limit of how much they can put in yearly into that account.
And she said earlier, if without this big anomaly, it'd
Mhm.
be probably 30,000, which would probably be spent every year. And I think, and I get your point. I don't think it's it's a spend down type of account.
So
But-
Dan, what they would be doing if you're saying that they should be trying to then spend down whatever's in it in the year, then it's no different than them doing a bulk spend at the end of the year just because they have the money. So it's better for them to have the money that can still be used to help the students in the town for educational purposes that they can be more planful for. They had additional grant money and savings that came because of COVID, which is why they had such a bulk amount that went in those 2 years.
So that's your opinion. I'm saying my
No, that's
opinion.
that's a fact, but that's why they have that money in
That's
there.
fine. But my opinion on that account that I seconded was that money would go into that account. And by the end of the year, due to, like you were saying, cost savings, that they could say, hey, in October, we can buy this stuff cheaper or whatnot. They would buy it, and then the money would be expended. And then when they say, hey, we had an overage of 80,000 this year, or you know what, that year, they don't have an overage. And the money doesn't go in the account, and there's nothing in the account. That's how I thought that account was supposed to operate.
So is that, so that's where, I just have a quick question to respond to Dan. So that's where I think we struggle is what does the Board of Finance want from us? Because to me, if I had so I guess I look at my own finances. If I had a couple of years where we did well and I have money in my savings account, I don't typically turn around and go, well, you better spend it this year and deplete that savings account. I really look at how can we be strategic? What things do we absolutely need? What can we add extra that maybe we couldn't do before, but could really enhance our students? Like the fields, we haven't been able to do anything with the fields for years. And we've been talking about it a long time, since way before I was on the board. What can we do visionary to continue to plan and strategize and do things? Because we do have a large amount in there that we never anticipated. When we set this account up, we never in our wildest dreams thought COVID was going to happen and all of this was going to happen. But if the uphill fight that or argument that we tend to have is when it comes to budget time, where you have the non-lapsing. I mean, if you guys would prefer as a board that we go out and just spend it away so that we can all get back to zero on budgeting with just a little drip into it if we budgeted well. And if that is what you guys would prefer, we need to know that, because I feel like we're always having this conversation of why are you sitting on it, or we're not sitting on it, but we're also, I guess our philosophy is not just to spend it to spend it.
So how many years have we had this account?
S-
I appreciate that there's a philosophical difference on like how to spend that account. I don't necessarily agree that I'd want them spending it down to zero. I don't know if we need to debate it right now.
Sure, but
We can if we want to, but I think it's just a philosophical difference. I don't think there's like one right way to do this. I think the money goes in for educational purposes. We have to acknowledge the reality that they every year are cutting professional development, they're cutting supplies, they're cutting things out of the budget because of the situation of our town. And they need that money to be flexible so they can spend it on the things that they need to, whether it's fields or professional development or whatever it ends up being. And I don't know that I'm not interested in micromanaging it.
so when we talk about supplies, is it professional development or supplies? We hear that the teachers don't have enough professional development, and we also hear that they, don't have enough supplies. But we have an account sitting there with $300,000 in it. If they need supplies, go buy the supplies. If they need to go get professional development, go to get the professional development. The money is sitting there year after year. Yes, it's been only a couple of years, but it's been sitting there for a couple of years now. Spend the money.
let's, the first year that we had the non-lapsing account, Christine, do you know how much went in there?
So the deposit for FY 20 was $133,725.45.
Because of COVID?
School March of 20.
Okay,
And then, fiscal year 21, it was, 259,096.22.
that went in, or that's how, what the balance was,
That's what went in.
right?
And then 22, it was 285,574.42. And then we haven't done the we don't have the official for this year, but Christine, the ballpark was
30.
30.
So
And we do have it flagged for professional development, Dan. We are spending it for that. But we also want to make sure it's the right professional development. We don't just send teachers to conferences to send them to conferences. It has to fall within our goals for instruction and everything else. Instructional supply, we do have money in our budget for instructional supply. So I guess I'm not following when we say we don't have money for instructional supply. We budgeted almost $130,000 for instructional supply this year. If there's something additional like the STEAM, those are programs for science, technology, math, those kinds of programs. We absolutely are using the account for that. And we'll continue to, because that's what we think it should be for.
how much, I don't mean to cut you off, but how much has been spent out of the account in each of those years?
The deposits are over 677,000.
So 300 something has been spent.
Yeah.
So,
Is there a report that shows all the ins and all the outs by date? That might be something. Yeah,
Yes.
'cause we haven't seen anything all for 10 months, I don't think. So if we could see maybe all the in, all the out from the beginning of time, that might be helpful just once.
Yeah, I'll get you a full report. Like I said, I can get it to you by Friday. It should be coming to you monthly, but I can get you the full report. That's what we look at, is what's in and what's out. So I'll get you
From the
that.
Inception? That's what I'm asking.
That's fine. Yeah. It's not that long of a report. I can definitely get you that.
Can
To
you
your-
have Bill not include the things that have been approved but haven't actually been spent yet?
Yeah, we usually have it that way, but I would like you to see what's been approved so you know what's coming out of it as well. Even with this upcoming grant, that's a pretty large chunk of money that's going to come out on this new grant.
So about 55% has been spent.
right, so I mean, Dan, I understand your point. But let's assume that with proper budgeting and no, gifts from the government for, pandemic related stuff, you're gonna end up, if you see big numbers going in there, there's something wrong with the budget.
Correct.
Okay, so they're assuming that from their numbers that they're gonna put 30,000 into it from fiscal year ending.
We're assuming zero. It's just where we end up at the year. We're not,
I'm just saying,
there's
what-
no
what
line
you-
item
I
for
know,
non-lapsing.
What you think went in there for this past end of school year is roughly $30,000.
Yeah, and I think if you look at years past prior to 2019, at where our budgets end and where that year-end spend would come in sometimes, that number seems to be about correct. It's usually about where we landed, and a little bit more or maybe a little bit less. So if you wanted to see some history of what the realistic number would look like, that would be a good place to look as well.
And $30,000 is not that much.
Not on this size of a budget.
I'm just
I
saying,
mean-
30,000, to be able to, if 30,000 came in and we had a zero in the RISA account, could you spend $30,000 this year pretty easily?
Yes.
So I'm gonna just interrupt for a second. This is all great, but I would like to see the ebb and flow of what's going in and out before we can start talking about whether $30,000 moves the needle or not. Perhaps if we get some kind of historical record like that Winona asked for, then we can revisit this topic. But to talk about it in generalities is going to get us nowhere right now. Just my perspective. Feel free to ignore.
I guess I want to add one thing there. I remember there was a long conversation about this last year, that the insurance expense for fiscal year 2022, the medical insurance expense was over budgeted by, I think it was almost $100,000. And so that was a one-off. And we talked, I remember at large talking about why that happened. And it is clearly was not the case this year. So outside of COVID, that was another significant deposit.
We
All
should
right,
be,
well, I think we should get the reports and if we can get some historical data as to what was given back each year by the Board of Ed at the end of budgets, at the end of their the end of the school year, which is the end of fiscal year.
you won't
know-
see a big give back, but what you'll see is, maybe some of those approved expenses at the end of the year that we had to do very last minute.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So unrelated to this account, I do ask for one thing, and I can give it to Mike, we can give it to you to Ray, but I would like to see sort of an accounting of how we get to cost per student. So total students, total budget, total tuition paid, total tuition students, number of students out of district, number of tuition paid out of district. Just get us down to what are we paying per student, per resident child educated in the town. But you're gonna have to move all the beads to.
So, no, I don't think it's that difficult. I'm just, do you want the cost per student? We can pull that quickly, or do you want the cost per student per resident of town?
Per
Or-
resident, what I wanna do is, there's a lot of ebb and flow. We're paying for kids to go to other districts. We're bringing kids in and they're paying tuition. I just wanna know, for the number of kids that we educate in town, what's the dollar per student? Our kids, resident kids.
Kids, okay. All right, I can get you that number. I believe it's around 17 to 18, but I can get you that number. Okay. But it's not broken down by cost per taxpayer, just so you
No,
know.
I'm not worried. about that.
Okay,
But
okay.
I would like to see those steps though. How much tuition's coming in, how many kids are paying tuition, how many kids are going out, how much tuition. we're
Yeah,
paying.
so there
And
is
if
a,
you have to break that into special ed versus VOAG, that's fine.
yeah, and we have those numbers in the budget. I can just attach a number to it, if that
Perfect.
would be helpful.
Yep.
All right, and when we send you the report each month, would you like that number there, or do you kind of know? I mean, once it's set, it's set.
I just need a benchmark.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the non-lapsing at this point? So we have a plan. We're gonna get the latest report that shows, kind of what's come in, what's been going out.
For sure.
And we can get that for probably the 3 years that we've had it,
Yes.
and then some data on what the give backs were, assuming that you spent money at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the best way for you to look at that is when you look at maybe the May of that year report. You'll see a number of what's anticipated left, and then what you see the June number look like.
Okay, that's a good way to do it. Maybe we can just get like a spreadsheet on that. Rather than necessarily, I guess, would we do it by just the report from May and the report from June
For each year,
for each
yeah,
year?
yeah.
Like
I
four-
can,
4 or 5 years? Or-
yeah, I
4?
can probably get that. I can get that for you if you'd like to see it. You want me to pull that or have Bill pull that?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, you'd think we'd have we had to do a audit at the end of each year. It's got to show. And I probably have 10 years of it kicking around somewhere too. So we'll find it for you. Give us a
Let's
little
take
more
that
time than
offline.
Friday.
We trust you.
just to give you guys kind of an idea of some of the things we're thinking about too. I know you'll get the report of what's been spent, but we have discussion every time about what are we thinking about doing with the money too. So just to give you an idea, innovative instruction, we have at 28,000. We have some money for the Alternative Education Center over here, about 10,000. Again, the wood shop was in there. Co-op sports is going to cost us a little bit more. We had the field improvements in there. Irrigation was about $230,000. But now we got the grant, and that's huge. We were ready to spend that out of the non-lapsing, so that is significant help. What else? The roof repair from the bird damage is about $9,400. We're also looking at, we did just approve to, we're getting pricing on security cameras for stairwells and blind spots. We got denied our security grant that we requested, so we're putting in new glass at the offices so that they can actually have a pass-through window, where right now we don't have that. We're putting up some bollards so that cars can't go through the doors, things like that. We've all approved through the non-lapsing. I'm trying to think of what other thing most recently. The other thing that's kind of on our radar, it's on the capital as well, but need to kind of address that tunnel and what to do with that. But that did go over on our capital list. Okay.
So just because it's a nerve, the tunnel was supposed to be done when we built the school on one side of it. The decision to repurpose the school that was exited. So this has triggered incremental capital associated with that decision. So I just want to.
Yeah, so just for an example, like our elementary kids do field trips at the library 4, 5, 6 times a week. Each class goes once a week. They use the tunnel.
Yeah.
So they're on this side of the street, but they use the tunnel, and
We use the tunnel for all kinds of
we
things.
use it for a lot of things,
Many-
not,
many town
None of this
things.
is lost on me. None of it. I'm just going back to what was sold to us when we put the
Okay,
school on the
when-
other side of
when
the
does
road.
that expire? Just out of curiosity, when does that
Never.
expire? Like, so in 10 years, are we still gonna be talking about
I'll
this?
tell you
The
what.
other
it
thing
ex-
is
it-
for
it expires
parking-
when we get reimbursed from the state. How's
for
that?
parking and all of that too. I just think it's a really nice nice connection between one side to the other, regardless of if it's a student going through it or an adult going through it. It is a nice
I
connection.
don't disagree, but it was just part of the justification to go over there was we wouldn't have
Yes,
to do this.
Security
I'm gonna-
risk, it
It-
wasn't,
Whatever
it
the
was ADA
justification
compliant.
was, it was wrong, right? Period. End of story. Like, I have a 6th grader. One of the big, like, moments of growth is when she can sign herself out of school, walk under that tunnel, and go to the library. Like, that is a rare thing that most towns don't have. We don't have the ability to have our kids move freely around. There is no way in hell, I don't care how many flashing light, stop sign things you put across Route 2, that I will ever let any of my children walk across Route 2. So sorry for the rant, but I don't care whether that was the justification or not. The reality is the town uses it. We need it. I would love as a citizen to continue to have access to that. And so somebody threw it in some business case. They were wrong to put it there. How about that? Like, they were just wrong to put it there.
And I would say that the town does use it when it's unlocked, but it's not unlocked all the time. They
It's
close it
easy
down.
to get it
It-
requested.
I'm just, let's not make a case that works for our individual approach. The taxpayers have to pay for this. It's not just the parents of the teachers. It's not just the people that want to walk through the tunnel to go over to Ascot Swamp. It's the entire town has to incur this burden.
Yeah, and
I'll get off it, but I'm just saying.
we just had a Halloween light parade and we had 1,000 people and none of them were directly related to the school. They all parked over there and walked under the tunnel and attended our town event. I'm salty tonight. I'm sorry. I've
Yeah.
snapped at you and now I've
I don't
snapped at
care.
Gary. So
I get snapped on every single day, or whatever. Doesn't matter to me. I do have a question, like I said, ADA. I know that was one of the things during the time period we were saying we were completely wrong for saying all this stuff, but it was saying that it was not ADA compliant, which
It
it's
probably
not.
won't be.
It won't be. How are we?
We drive them across the street, or we're going to bus them across the street. From the school's perspective, for the town, I don't know what you're going to do there.
So are they using a school bus, regular bus? how does that work?
I'm not sure, but they use transportation.
They use transportation.
Yes.
So
Right.
going to Gary's thing, if we were busing elementary school kids over there with just one or two, why wouldn't we bus all the elementary school kids over there? If we're spending the money to go,
We're not, I don't believe, and I don't want to, I don't believe we're using an M&J bus to go to the field trip. I think there's other ways to do it. I'm not sure what that is exactly, and I don't even know if it's really been an issue, but all I know is that the tunnel probably will not be able to be made ADA compliant.
okay, what are the major deficiencies of that tunnel? Just high level, 30,000 feet.
The major what?
Deficiencies of that tunnel.
I do not know. I
don't
just
use
know
the
it needs
tunnel
to be
because I was told
repaired.
It was like, oh my God, it's, completely unsafe. And I was like, all right, I'll just cross Route 2 here.
I know the
Yeah,
steps are,
specifically
I
one
know the
tunnel.
steps are
I
deteriorating
believe
quite a
it's the
bit.
Stairs.
Stairs.
The bullnoses on the stairs are gone, I think.
Yeah. So from the town's perspective, because it is on the capital ask, we are going to be talking to the, building official to see what kind of steps we need to take. If there is anything we need to do to try to make it compliant, if we're going to be making modifications to it. So that's on the selectmen's radar. And First Selectman is working with the building official and the state to figure out what needs to be done. Cause we're afraid if we start to touch it, we may trigger some things.
Well, you
So,
can trigger yourself to getting into all right, they'll say, back in whenever the tunnel was put in, what, 95 or whatever, they say, hey, these are the building requirements, these are where you have to be. As soon as you start doing modifications to it, you could be held to a different standard.
right, so that's why we're looking into it before we do anything.
So I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. It's just, I want to make sure that we're not getting in like
I love
Christina.
the tone of everyone with their,
it's just I don't want to open up something that we're going to be on the hook for, and you come back and say, "Well, we didn't know that this, and it's going to be now $100,000."
Well, we're not, we put it on our capital thing. We didn't, it's not in our budget. It's not, it's, when we were asked to put our capital list together, that's where we put it.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
a different subject.
Because we don't own it. I mean, it's so, and you guys will have to decide your capital. I don't, all we were told is to give a list, and that's what we did.
Do you know who officially owns that tunnel?
The town must.
But we have to
Oh.
request the school to unlock it for us.
Well, and I
So,
think you could
like,
put a
we-
schedule together for that. That's an easy workaround, right?
No, I'm
Yeah.
not complaining. I'm just saying, like, if the town owns it, then the town should be responsible for locking it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
But-
sure.
I thought they talked about doing electronic.
I mean, that would be
Call a
cool.
number, somebody unlocks it for you. It
Oh,
locks
no.
back up when you go through.
All I know is, like, I send a note to
That would be-
this central office and they unlock it for us for our town events. So, yeah.
And the school probably has more manpower than the town would.
all right, let's, kind of bring it back. Do you
Can
have
I-
anything-
Can I leave?
Anything as far as the financials that you just did you, were there, everything looks good as far as you're concerned?
Yes, I will say that the new report that you'll see is much different than the ones in the past. Very clean, very easy to understand. I feel like Bill has done a really good job of putting things where they belong, creating some new line items, moving some things around. I'm really excited to see how the budget layout comes for next year. This is their first year. This is their first year with their own budget. Last year's budget was not their budget. So I think he's really embracing infinite visions, really doing a lot with that, building the budget within it. So I think it's been going very, very well. In the past, it was kind of like you had to ask the right question to get the door to open. And now it doesn't feel that way. Christine's nodding along, right? And if you didn't ask the right question, the door would not open. So it's feeling really nice. I will say the work relationship's feeling very good.
Anything else for Christine? Thank you for being here, Christine. Really
I'm happy to
appreciate it.
come anytime, and I really am sorry you don't have the non-lapsing. I will be sure you have a very comprehensive report for that, because we do want to get to I kind of want to put that So we're all on the same page, so we can move into a different direction.
Mike, do you think we might have capital? Are we gonna have any questions for Christine or possible
I mean,
capital planning?
I don't think we're gonna really have a substantive discussion until the next time. She has, like she said, she brought forth what they have
Yeah.
requirements and it's gonna be up to the selectmen to really dive into that and decide what's gonna happen, what's not gonna happen, and then, you know, we're gonna have conversations with them during their budget season if there's any of their items still on that list. So, and other than, you know, were there any priorities that you wanted to bring forth, Christine, as far as what you guys did for capital? I think we should talk about.
We did priority rank them. I would say after the tunnel, we'd like to look into doing oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sometimes you deserve it. Right. We would like to look into a sports van. Overall, we think that could save quite a bit of money on transportation, especially with our co-op sports field trips. We've talked about, can we partner with the senior center on something like that? What can we do? We've just sort of brainstormed around it. We don't have exact ideas on that, other than we really think overall it would save us quite a bit of money. We actually have teachers that have gotten their bus licenses as well, so that they can help drive bus sometimes if we're short at M&J, but busing is difficult. And if we could have a way to circumvent sometimes when we're short busing for sports and some of those events, we think we could really come out ahead on that.
Is that gonna cause any issues with M&J or the bus company by having teachers?
No, so our contract with the bus company, the sports and stuff are additional. Those are extra. They're not part of that.
Not part of the general contract?
Right,
Okay.
right. And they've been great to work with. So they get it. Sometimes they just can't get us a bus for a sport. We're not trying to step over what they're able to do. We're just there to kind of help when they can't.
It would be helpful if you, for next time, if you could provide like a ballpark figure of how much you think you spend on sports busing. and
Oh, we
how
know
much the
exactly.
how much the van would actually, well, but also how much of that a van you think could actually offset, because not, a van, typically like a big one will be like 10 or 12, right? So it's gonna only be for specific.
It's going to be more for our co-op stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
right, Yeah. So, or like, I don't know how big cross country is, or, like certain clubs it would work for, but maybe, not
Mhm.
others. I mean, that would help us understand
Okay.
what the,
Possible savings on the transportation
yeah,
side would
right,
be.
how long of a
All right.
return on
Yep.
investment.
The only thing that could be difficult with that is if baseball has a game in like Waterford and track and field has got one in like Norwich. They got one bus. So I don't think for a team, like you were saying, it's more transporting them back and forth to the schools is more of a, if it's only gonna be 12 15 with gear and everything, that kind of fills up a baseball team.
It's probably not going to be our baseball team.
I'm just
it's-
saying baseball or.
But that's why
track
we
and
say our
field.
co-op. So like our co-op is maybe, I think we have 4 or 5 that go to Griswold. We're looking at adding gymnastics. That's 2 kids.
Yeah, gymnastics.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Through
doing a
tunnel.
team of 1 through NFA.
Gary,
All right. Just back and
I
forth.
I think that like where
the van's gonna be parked
so
over
where
here.
you could get a bus, right? Like anytime you couldn't get a bus,
Yeah.
that's where parents are like scrambling to, and so if you had a van, you could possibly offset, instead of having every parent try to drive their kids, like you could drive half of them, like scenarios like those in your co-ops, like whatever we just, it just would be
A bigger
helpful.
presentation on it, right?
It doesn't
And
have to be a huge presentation, like
PowerPoint.
one slide.
Okay. I can bring the gymnasts in.
Well, you're gonna need it for the Board of Selectmen anyway, if you're gonna, for all of these things about what you're prioritizing and
Well, right, and I would
Yeah.
think everybody's going to for all of their line items, but certainly we can start working on that as, kind of an answer to what would be maybe a priority. That's number 2 on our list. So,
I would be curious to understand if there's any liability associated with whoever's driving the van, if it is a teacher.
Okay.
I think that would come under the
This
normal
hasn't
school
come up,
umbrella.
but Did I get an what happened with the RFP for the steel building for the school that we? So we did an RFP for a steel building, I think, an equipment shed or something?
We didn't go forward with that. We ended up,
Budgeted in the capital request or
no, what we ended up doing was renting a,
van?
yeah,
I got it. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I'm just curious. I saw
Yep.
it come up, but I had never heard it.
we didn't really, you'll see it in year 5. It's still on the capital, but it's way down the list. We didn't want to really felt that we wanted to spend that kind of money on something like that at this point.
And Winona, we did talk to the insurance, so they just have to have the passenger endorsement on their license, and they're covered because it's a school activity. So it's covered under the regular, town Board of Ed insurance policy.
My high school had a van. Like I was in cross country, so there weren't a lot of us cross country skiing. They drove us places. It meant we got to do things that we wouldn't have done anyway. Or smaller groups.
And when we talk about the liabilities, Winona, like I know for the gymnastics, my daughter's going to be driving herself and the other athlete, I believe. That, as an insurance person, concerns me more than somebody under the school insurance licensing. Like what happens if something happens and it's a school sanctioned event, but my daughter was driving? Like those are things we think about as well.
State Farm umbrella increase.
All set. Thanks, Mike.
Anything else for Christine? Thanks so much, Christine. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
On the capital planning, I guess we're gonna hear something preliminary at our next meeting.
So the selectmen, at their meeting, so they're going to have, field trips to go to the Center for Emergency Services building. They're gonna invite you along to those so that you can see the existing equipment for the fire company and for the ambulance association. The meeting that we're having with the selectmen on the 14th, they're going to have the highway do their presentation about their capital ask. And there's also going to be a field trip to go look at the existing equipment on another day. So if those work with your schedules and you'd like to attend, please put them on your calendar once we figure out the dates for those. So that presentation on the 14th, so you won't have anything for your meeting on the 15th as far as a updated capital.
Okay.
Cause they haven't made any decisions at this point of anything to, take away. I don't really know what they would add at this point. So anything to take away from the proposed capital. So it's a fluid process and they'll keep moving on that. So I would say December, you should have a draft.
Look at Gary.
No, I'll be the opinion. I'm apparently the
I'm
opinion.
not talking. Talking to Dan. I could read your mind already.
Do we wanna propose a date by when we want it, so it doesn't remain fluid? No. I know, but like, it's always good to have a target to shoot at. So this is the first
I
year.
want to assume good intent, but I agree. We should just say, give us a first cut by such and such a date.
What's our second meeting in December?
That's the 20th when you're going to hopefully have the audit presentation.
No,
That's okay.
That's right for Christmas. Like that should be canceled. That should not even.
Yeah, let's not do that.
We'd like it by December 6th.
They have done much review. They have not made any decisions.
Okay,
Two of them are wrong.
so they did a lot of review. but
They have
there's no-
questions to ask of the people who are making the requests. So that's starting on their next meeting on the 14th.
Yeah, it's pretty dense. Like there's a lot there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Completely agree, but I would say probably you could go in there. If you do a lot of it, cull it down to like at least half.
me ask-
Dan's
let me
volunteering
just
his
ask
help
Brett.
with his red pen. He's gonna bring his
Oh,
red pen.
I do it all the time. I'm like, no, 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 yes, no, 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 and don't let them come back and let them cry about it, and then you start adding stuff. It's a huge list. You're right, completely huge list. But they also came back with a priority, like Christine said, we want this, this, this. These are our priorities. I think that was what was directed. Set us your priorities. We don't at this point going into a budget season, we really don't care what's going on in year 5 as of yet. They can still work, but if they can get us top 5 or top 3, that would be kind of beneficial.
I hear what you're saying. Can they get us a list of what people are really demanding for this budget season?
So the groups that submitted items triage their items, but most groups had no more than 3 items. So it's already, the fire company has a top 3 and the highway department has a top 3. And so
Versus the top 3, kind of figure it out there. You kind of
I mean, I guess to give the guidance to the Board of Selectmen what we'd like to see. Obviously, we're not looking for a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan before budget season, but
2 years, maybe 1 year, something.
I think this budget season, the ask, what they can expect to see the main 1 or 2 items or top 3 items.
I would like to make a request that whatever we do receive, that we receive it in Excel file so that we can work with it if that's at all possible. PDFs are not easy to work with.
So, knowing the 6th is probably a stretch for it. What's the first meeting we have in January? So that'll get the audit behind us. I really don't want to push it out into January, but I'm trying to uncharacteristic of myself, show a little heart here.
I agree, Gary, and I like what you're saying. The thing is that we don't have any substantive budgeting stuff to do until we get the grand list. So using an early January meeting for this is probably not a bad idea.
So you would, in theory, have a meeting January 3rd and January 17th, and the 17th would be the meeting that the assessor would come and do the presentation.
So by the 3rd then.
Sorry, I can live with that. But I agree. If it's not due tomorrow, it's just not due. So we got to put a date up.
Christine, would it be possible for you to create I know it's early, but to create a draft of the budget schedule?
It is already done, and it's going to be discussed by the selectmen at their meeting on the.
Okay, so we'll see it. I would love to see it with the capital schedule overlaid on it. Like if we actually had 2, if that's possible, just because I know the capital schedule isn't defined yet, but like as we're kind of going about it, you've already done some of it. So we would, instead of just having like, what do we normally have, like December to June or something, if we just had a year calendar, 12 months, and then we have one column for capital, and we'd have the capital and then we can see where they overlap and where
Yeah,
they don't.
What do you mean?
You don't mind?
What?
So
calendar
adding in
for
like
cap-
that, we ask for things, we want to start in like July, August, asking for capital requests from the groups. And so I can do a general and kind of put it
Are
together.
you looking for us to approve a schedule for like that? Because normally we own the budget. The Board of Selectmen will review it, and then we will approve the budget schedule itself.
Yeah, yes, I'm asking for it before Christine leaves.
So,
But also I'm asking, so it's usually a table, right?
Yep.
And I'm asking if we can have a 3rd column that says capital, and so capital dates would actually hopefully not directly be on
yeah.
top of budget dates.
follow. Yeah, I think that's good. It's just if we put it with the budget schedule, we're going to also be approving that also. We approve that whole schedule.
So I'll make one as a combined, and I'll make a separate just budget.
Sure.
Thank you for the option.
You're really gonna miss us, aren't you?
like Gary missing that tunnel talk.
Do you? No, no, not you. I was gonna ask you a question and then I figured I'd wait for the meeting to be over. It was a non-town business question.
So when are they gonna review that schedule?
The next meeting they have on the 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know they were having discussion as to whether the presentations should be combined presentations or if they should go back to the people present to them and then people present to you. So they're going to discuss all that.
I thought whenever we decided that it was a joint thing.
We're just going to talk everything.
Okay.
So are you gonna get us that schedule by the 15th then?
I will have it for you on the 15th. It might not be 100%, but it'll be a good draft. That's good.
Because we had to approve that, like, what, December 3rd meeting or?
Yeah, early December. It's on the schedule.
Anything further on capital planning from the board? Amy, you good? Review of the minutes from October 18th.
Need a motion to accept the meeting of October 18th as read.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes. 6-0-0. You like this, right? Motion to adjourn.
Oh, we got public comment.
Public
Well,
comment.
where?
I-
Oh,
I-
there it is. Sorry. Public comment.
I do have one quick question. for
False
Christine.
start.
Have we received anything back from the state on when we're gonna get a reimbursement for the school?
We have not received anything back from the state, but Representative Howard is working on it for us with the Department of Administrative Services. So we are hoping to get some sort of information that we can pass along at some point.
So he's going up there and shaking the tree.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Good question, Dan.
Well, we'll be sitting here 2-3 years down the road and we'll be like, where's our money? and everybody will be gone and we'll be like, where is it?
Any public comment? Going
Look.
once? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.